and staff. And we have, as you know, this is being live streamed. So we have hopefully some alums and people who know the school and love the school viewing from the comforts of their home or wherever they might be viewing. And I'm excited for that. Live stream, I think, has a lot of opportunities for us in a number of ways. And I'm very delighted that this is one of our inaugural events. I want to thank Max Lapushin, Natalie Reinhardt, and the indomitable Paul Werner, because they've done the tech work to make all of this happen. And it's no small feat, but I appreciate the time that they've put in and their expertise to make this happen. So let's start. I believe I know all of you, most of you. It's been my privilege, both personally and professionally, to be at the helm of Ben Franklin since July. A year ago, I was beginning to be introduced to this community and get to know some of the faculty and teachers and students. And I knew then that I was in for a really wonderful experience. And the past 6 months have done nothing but reinforce that. This truly is a great school. And one of the things that I think about with Franklin is that it's a place. And these next few slides are for those, especially for those alumni, who remember this as a place. In fact, some of your pound of flesh is probably buried in some classrooms around this place. And when you come back to this building, you feel a sense of reconnection. But it is a wonderful place. The architecture, the openness, the invitation of this facility has been something that I've enjoyed as I learn which hallway to take and which stairwell to take. The other thing, and I did this 2 days ago, doors are very interesting. And you know, we all walk the hallways, but I stopped and actually looked and took pictures of some of the doors. Some of these doors probably haven't changed much over the past 15, 20, 30 years. I think Diego's door looks like it might be the same. The doors that welcome the students, the doors that invite the students in to their education. The lockers, the decoration, the identification of students through the lockers, through their bulletin boards, so many clubs and activities. When you walk the halls, you get a real sense of the vibrance of this community by looking at the building. You know, again, just some random signs, some opportunities, some announcements that this building shares with your students and with us each and every day. So Franklin really is a place, but it's people. And when I interviewed, that was one of the things that I wondered. How do you build a sense of community in a city like New Orleans where there's so many things to do with 950 students? How do you make a community out of that? And I am just so impressed with the commitment to community among the faculty, the staff, and the students. And it is the people that make Franklin what it is. I have a hyperlink on faculty and staff. I can't activate it here, but if you've never gone to the website, or if you haven't gone there recently, it's all been upgraded, click on faculty and staff and just scroll through. You'll see some very bright faces, some happy faces, some people who are really delighted and honored to be a part of this school and to be working with these students. So it is a place and it is people. I'm sharing with you this excerpt from a letter. When I interviewed in November of 2015, there was a couple of student panels, and I asked one of the student panels, you know, I'm an eighth grader in New Orleans, why should I come to Franklin? And nobody answered. And I said, okay, you can't picture me as an eighth grader, I get that. Later that afternoon, I got an email, and this is just an excerpt, eloquently written, slightly embarrassed that no one could really answer that question. This student offered some thoughts as to why that might be, and then this was the closing paragraph, which to me, captures what Franklin is. And in fact, it was one of the pieces that led me to think, after I got this email, I thought, okay, if this goes forward and if I'm offered the job, this was one of the selling points. So I hope you've had a chance to read it. And this was a student who graduated last year. So here's our agenda for this evening. We're going to go through what I think are some important data points to keep in mind so that as we move out 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, as we make decisions, as we change this, as we innovate that, what is the overall impact on the quality of education, on the opportunities for students, and on the overall impact on Benjamin Franklin High School. So there's some data points that I've been tracking. As we go through these, or any of the presentation, please keep questions in mind. I'm going to probably talk for about 30 minutes, 35 minutes, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. Anybody who's viewing this on the live stream, there's a chat feature, so you can ask questions as well, or you can email them to me, pwidhalm@bfhsla.org. So we'll get questions from both the in-house audience and the global audience. But this is what I would like us to focus on. And also, in addition to questions, if there are some things you think would be helpful to track that aren't up here, talk to me afterwards or send me an email, and we can do those as well. The intent of this is to be an annual event and to have a certain structure to it so that we're looking at the same points each year so that we can see the direction. Oh, and I forgot something very important. Which student in here can tell me why we're having this tonight? Yes. Whose birthday is it? Ben Franklin's 301st birthday. So that was the alignment for this. Okay, let's look at some of the data that I think helps us recognize the impact of decisions. Some of this, and this is all, I've gone back 5-6 years so that we can look at any kind of trajectories. How are we doing with admissions? What are we doing to make sure that the best students in New Orleans come to the best school for them? Lynn Jenkins and Karen Radasta do such an amazing job, and Christy Reed helps, and everybody in the office works with them. But if you look at the numbers of applications, you'll see what I think is the positive direction. And right now, Lynn is estimating that we'll end up this season with 880 applications. So that in and of itself is step one. We've got to make sure that the students know what Franklin is and how it can impact them. Get out to the parents, and I'm going to go through a couple more slides to give you what I think is a very good dimensional look at our admissions process. Okay, so you can see that the number offered, that the number of, and you know, you take a test, you pass, you get on the matrix, and you're in. There's no other step for admission. So about 45% of the students who apply for admission and take the test meet the matrix for enrollment. Now, how many, once we offer and say you've shown that you could be successful at Franklin High School, here's your offer, how many accept? And you can see that typically about 9 to 10% make another choice. That number seems pretty consistent to me, so I'm not sure that there's anything to change or to do, but this would be a number we would track if we changed a new marketing plan, if we tried something slightly different with the students once they had been identified as potential Franklin students. And again, to have a 91% of the students accept that offer, frankly, it gives us the enrollment we need. If we're looking at about 350 new students for next fall, on top of the classes that are increasingly larger behind them, we're running out of space, which is something that I'll get more into later on. Another very important issue is once the students start the year, how many complete the year? And the retention rate, the work especially done with ninth graders and incoming students, but throughout the 4 years that they're here. There are probably some parents of seniors who've gotten the notice that their child will be in the retention study hall, because at any point you have to go in and you have to do the work to get back onto solid ground. But that's a strong retention rate on an annual basis. What I didn't have, and I think another number to track, is how many students who start as ninth graders finish as 12th graders. So we'll start getting that information as well. And I think it's very important for us to understand the impact we're having on New Orleans. The school has long had I think a point of strength in that the diversity of the student body reflects in many ways the diversity of this great city. And you can see that even over the past 6, 7, 8 years, there's never been an ethnic majority in place. This is a school that welcomes all with the ability and the dedication to succeed. But I think you can see looks to me like purple. The Hispanic numbers have increased as the population of our city has. The Asian population has stayed about the same. That's the only one to me that hasn't shown any particular change. The number of African American students represented in the student body has increased. And then there's that last bar, the gray bar, are students who identify as biracial or other. But I think this is, and when I talked early on with faculty and with students, one of the things I did is ask them each to give me 3 words that they think identify the strength of Franklin. And without exception, the word diversity was in everybody's list. It's seen, and it is, an important strength of this school. This is the percentage of students that we report to OPSB is on free and reduced lunch. It does not include families that seek payment plans, that seek financial assistance, which would probably add about another 10% to that number. So we want to, again, reach every neighborhood, every community, every qualified student with the opportunities that Franklin avails. This is something that I think is pretty amazing too. Last year, Lynn reported 90 plus schools that sent kids to Franklin. And you'll see that the last bar totals more than 90. Some of the out-of-state schools were also counted in the parochial schools. There were 11 there are students here from 11 different states. The family moved to New Orleans. I know of one anecdotally that chose New Orleans because they could do their work anywhere. They narrowed it to Austin, Washington, and New Orleans. And when they began to look at the educational opportunity of Franklin, they chose New Orleans. So we are attracting people who can do especially high-tech business, and Franklin is part of that. But you can see that the numbers of public schools, there are RSD schools in here. It might be one child from Arise Academy, but they're coming. They're getting in, and we're building, again, that bridge for the highly motivated and the very talented student to come to Franklin. That puts a bit of a burden, it puts a burden on especially the ninth grade faculty, because with all of those schools, there's a much broader range of preparation. So the teachers, the ninth grade teachers especially, are finding ways and identifying ways that they can help get the kids into the same place to move forward. Lusher is still a large school, Hines is still a large school, 30, 40 students, but when you have such a broad range of schools sending kids, the faculty, their first job is to get everybody on the same page so that they can move forward. Thank you. Okay, so this is information that Mr. Ferris, David Ferris is the assistant principal for academics, and not only manages the academic program and the faculty well, but has a real good head for how things can work out. He's a physicist by training, and I think he understands systems well. So I got some of this information from Mr. Ferris. But if you look at AP, that is the heart of the curriculum at this school. And it's taught well. The success rate of the students on AP exams is one example of that. I did a survey of alumni. I didn't get as many responses as I would like, but one of the questions I asked them was how the curriculum at Franklin prepared them for college. And if you know alumni, or if you have kids who are now in college as well, the most common answer is, I was way prepared. College is easier. You know, I'm in classes now where I'm going over some of the material that I already had, and a lot of that comes out of the commitment and the talent and ability of the teachers working with the AP program. This is a slide that we're going to populate backwards. I was actually counting off a spreadsheet, and I gave you enough to let you know what I think is a good measure for us on how well we do in getting kids into college. That is an end result. That is one of the important end results here. So Ms. Flair had the results from last year's class, and then I went back and went through a spreadsheet to get the year before, and we're going to start tracking this. How many out-of-state schools did Franklin kids apply to? And then how many did they get accepted to? The acceptance rate is what we should be seeing here. I think 80% would be a nice target for that acceptance rate. That when a student from Franklin applies out of state, that they are so well sought after that we have a high percentage of those students who are admitted to those colleges. Whether they go or not depends on so many other factors. And looking down the list as I was this afternoon, there were students admitted to 3, 4, 5, 6 universities, and they chose one. But we need to make sure that Franklin graduates are admitted, are sought after. The scholarship amount says a whole lot about that, but the admission rate, I think, is important too. And you'll see that we're starting to get students who are looking at international college experiences. I know there are a couple in the senior class this year doing that. So they actually find themselves very competitive internationally, not just nationally, and certainly within the state of Louisiana. And then measuring community service. That, again, when I go back and talk about how impressed I am with the sense of community, it grows in so many ways out of the commitment to community service. Mission Ignition has been announced every morning this past week. It's a citywide effort to get schools to band together for community service. It was started by Lusher and by Franklin 4 years ago. And last year, I think it was 8 schools up there, but you can see the number of volunteer hours that students, not just from Franklin, but with Franklin as a catalyst, got to engage with this community to do service. And the kickoff for Mission Ignition is called, or is it Saturday? When? 2 o'clock, okay. So that's a big thing here. And the students who are involved in community service, you see some clubs listed on the right. Obviously, they're doing something specific to the mission and purpose of the club. But it also, there's always a response when there's that clarion call to serve. Mr. Paraka, who heads so much of this up, asked me to share with you what a response there was after the flooding in Baton Rouge. Some of the youth rebuilding New Orleans, Miss Flair took them to Baton Rouge, and they worked. He did a food drive for a food bank that had been devastated, and brought that food bank back on its feet because of the food drive of the students. So the community service is more than lip service. It really is a commitment on the part of students and faculty. And then community outreach. The Gateway program is now in its third year. Gateway invites 8th graders from any school in the city to come in. They say it's for tutoring, but it's really for individualized instruction. So if you're a little behind, you can get tutored, but if you are excelling, you can also move at your own pace. And this grew out of a partnership with the Kahn Academy, Saul Kahn, native of New Orleans. And so that platform provides a way that teachers here in this building can help the students individualize their instruction. This year, you'll see in a minute, the Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools recognized this as the statewide Community Roots program and gave an award to Ben Franklin for the work that's gone on. And Francois McHugh, who's our grants writer, has been significant in that program, as are the teachers who work with it. Great outreach. These are 8th graders. When I see them on the campus, they look like Franklin students, and it's another way for us to reach into the community to identify those students who might not have thought about coming here until they stepped through the door, until they stepped on campus, until they sat in the courtyard during a break and got to talk to people. So very important. I'm going to have Ilaria and Madison come up, and while they're doing that, I'm going to give a shout out to again to Ms. Jenkins. She goes to schools and does a lecture, a seminar on how to choose a high school. And you would think that she would say, how you choose a high school is you apply to Franklin. But that's not true. She talks to them about how different schools in the city have different opportunities, different challenges, and different rewards. And I've had several people, several principals tell me how much they appreciate her coming to help put that into the minds of the students, the 8th grade students and their parents. And I got to see her do it once, and it's a very effective outreach. Yes, she's the person they're seeing, she's the person from whom they're hearing, and it builds a bit of a bond or a connection to Franklin. But again, the ultimate goal is to help 8th graders prepare and make good decisions. Now, I want Madison and Ilaria to tell you about something they've been doing which further reinforces the fact that what makes this school great are the people. So I've got a light here because it's a little dark. Just go ahead.
Hi, I'm Madison Smither, and this is Ilaria Simeone. We're Franklin seniors, and during our time here, we've been able to jump into science. We've both been so lucky to get involved in research at Tulane. I work at the Tulane Cancer Center, and Ilaria works at the Tulane Center for Stem Cell Research and Regenerative Medicine. Science is a world of endless problems and opportunities for solutions. It's a way to make your mark, no matter what your background or the resources you have. It's about passion and motivation, and it's a field that depends on every voice. We have an idea to make other voices heard, and it's becoming a reality. On Tuesday afternoons, we run out of school with a group of Franklin volunteers carrying a cardboard box of test tubes and graduated cylinders and drive down Elysian Fields Avenue towards Arise Academy on the border of the lower 9th Ward. We make our way up the front steps and rush to the 3rd floor science lab.
All students deserve to pursue their dreams. We've founded From Student to Scientist so that they can. With a burning idea and a grant proposal, we approached the local Brown Foundation, received Brown's very first grant for a student-run initiative, and presented this program to the principal of Arise Academy. Soon, we were walking up those front steps for the first time. Nervously approaching our table at orientation, one student said, "We don't have a science club here." "This year you will," we said.
And it's true. Every Tuesday is filled with teaching, running, mixing, and learning by both the students and their teachers. We've learned several things. Science experiments are always more fun while eating pizza. Turning a marshmallow into a video game controller is a crowd pleaser. And failure can be fun because it brings new questions to explore and loads of laughter.
These young scientists have also taught us that just as important as finding a passion is putting trust in others to help make your dreams a reality. And we've been so lucky to gain that trust. We're empowering them to put trust in themselves too, from caring for Matthew Henry October the 4th, our beta fish, to caring deeply about their futures. One spunky 6th grader is going to be an engineer, a determined 8th grader wants to pursue both science and art, and an energetic 5th grader's face lit up with a smile when she saw the first green shoot in her plastic cup of soil on the windowsill.
In a recent meeting at the Office of Information Technology and Innovation at City Hall, we were asked how we were planning to continue to be there for the kids after we leave for college. From the beginning, we knew that it was essential for From Student to Scientist to establish a network to collaborate, learn, and grow. Through a Brown Foundation contact, we found a scientist at the Salk Institute in California who thought so too. Now, in partnership with Brown and Salk, we're establishing the Emmy Noether Scholars Program to create a network of scholars to foster collaboration and leadership and provide scholarships to students to help them pursue their dreams unhindered by barriers, just like Emmy Noether herself.
Once, a parent came early and watched our experiments from the back of the room. We watched as fascinated she moved closer. She became a student again, enthralled by the discovery of science, despite her age. She walked into the classroom tense and discouraged, but she walked out smiling as she marveled with her girls about chemical explosions and reactions. Her girls will not grow up in a world that is perfect, but they're finding the strength they need to create for themselves a world that is good. That world is closer with every laugh, smile, and dream that fills the room on Tuesday afternoons at Arise Academy.
From Student to Scientist has shown us a world where leadership means empowering others, and progress means giving others the strength to empower themselves. Science is more to us than just discovery. It's connecting with others and uniting around a problem to foster friendships. And through this friendship and unity, we can make real change. Thank you.
Is that not amazing? And they're students too. Talk about somebody who can manage time and make an impact. So that's the kind of outreach that is making a difference. And Madison and Ilaria have also, they'll both be off at college next year, but they're setting the stage for this program to continue through underclassmen. So it becomes part of the culture and the outreach of this school. Okay, let's talk about finances. Takes money to do this. And I can't see out in the audience, are there any CPAs? Only a CPA would get really excited with the term unmodified opinion, because that's what our audits get. They're unmodified opinions. In other words, they're A+, they're 100%, they're absolutely credible audits. But it always surprises me that CPA and accountants can't find something a little more dynamic to call it than an unmodified opinion. So what you're seeing comes from recent audits. You'll notice across the top, our primary source of funding is MFP. That's the public funding for education that comes from the state and the parish. Development is the funds that come through the development office, through grants, through fundraising. We do charge fees for classes, an AP class, other classes that have expendables, activities fees. We do receive some federal and state grants. We get what's known as the Educational Excellence Fund out of the state of Louisiana. We do get some title funding, not a lot of that. And then other revenue comes in terms sometimes of reimbursements and money that doesn't quite fit into the development fund model. But I think everybody can see a good, healthy progression in funding. If you remember back to the enrollment, the engine behind the funding increase is the MFP, and it's the enrollment increase. The enrollment has increased about 8% this year, and the year before that it was 6%, and we're anticipating another 6 to 8% next year. So that increase in enrollment brings the bulk of the funding which comes through the MFP. And this is how funds are used. The light green, Allison breaks this out Allison Bent is the CFO. I don't know that I said that, and does a terrific job with this. So she breaks it out between administrative expenses and instructional expenses. Right now, the total employment at the school is about 85, and of that, 65 are instructional and 20 are administrative. I did a calculation of salary and benefits, and 90 to 92% of the salary and benefits go to instructional personnel. And again, at the end, if there are questions about any of these slides, I'll be happy to come back to them. We'll talk a minute about faculty and curriculum. As I said at the beginning, this is a place, but it's people. And this school has been so fortunate over its almost 60-year history to have exceptional faculty members. And it still does. And one of the messages that I like to give to alumni who recall their favorite professor or their favorite class is that time has a way of those people moving on. That's the way it works. And the responsibility that we have as administrators and department chairs is to make sure that we always bring somebody behind them who can carry that ball, who can carry that torch, who can advance that subject area. So looking at the faculty hires and the faculty trends is for me, another very important information, data point to demonstrate that we are able to hire and keep the kind of faculty that this school deserves and that these students deserve. Oh yeah, before I came across this, so Brooke in his biography of Benjamin Franklin talked about Franklin's interest in starting a public school in Philadelphia. And I thought his subjects were interesting, especially the frequent exercise in running, leaping, wrestling, and swimming. He was a great swimmer. He felt a lot about that. There's plenty of running, leaping, and wrestling that goes on. And as you can read, he opened that and was very pleased. 100 scholars, daily increasing. We have excellent masters at present and give pretty good salaries. I think we give pretty good salaries here too, so that helps. That's a big part of attracting the kind and keeping the kind of professionals that we want working with these students. Mr. Ferris provided me with some thoughts about the curriculum as he thinks about it. Right now, that very bottom bullet point is where his mind is. Each year, in the next couple of weeks, students will begin to select their courses for next year. He builds a schedule from that. He does not start with a pre-built schedule that you somehow have to fit into. He looks at demand. He looks at where the areas are that he needs to create sections and hire. So that's a big commitment of his time and frankly, his talent. Of course, the AP curriculum remains at the core. There are currently 28 AP classes. We are expanding dual enrollment. Such a good partnership with UNO, and we appreciate Dr. Niccolo and what he brings to that. There's conversations about an intro to business and an intro to engineering. Those are the kinds of courses that I believe this school and these students need because they're taught at the college level. There are other ways to teach intro to engineering, but as I've seen them, a student that I've gotten to know here at Franklin would quickly lose interest. So we need the kind of courses that will challenge them at the highest level. We still have such a good partnership with NOCA. I'm good friends with Kyle, and I'm delighted to know that we have 40 kids who really get the best of both worlds. They're here for their academic program, then they go to NOCA for their arts program. But at the same time, this year especially, I don't have any point of reflection beyond this year, but just hearing what I've heard, the theater program here is coming back. There was a great production in the fall of Alice in Wonderland. They're doing Grease in the spring. There was a musical theater review. The talented theater class did their own production of 12 Angry Jurors. So the in-house opportunities. Ms. Reinhardt is working very strategically to expand visual arts curriculum to include digital arts and things of that sort. So there's a real growth internally as well as the NOCA opportunity. And then these are some of the new one-semester elective courses. These are courses that a faculty member perhaps did a dissertation on, has done research in, and is interested in teaching. So these become, I think, very attractive electives for students, especially the seniors who get to that point in their curriculum. This is just some data on the faculty. The numbers on the left come out of a report we give to the state every year. And the furthest column to the left, the BA, and then the average year's experience, that's the number of teachers in that year who had a bachelor's degree, and then the average of that 17, looking at the top right, top left, the average years of experience of those 17 teachers was 11 years. So that's how you can read down. And you see now it's what, 22 and 12 years of experience. So you can see for bachelor's, master's plus 30, and PhD. And then the last column is all faculty combined, the years of teaching experience. Last year, I believe there were 4 or 5 teachers who had committed many, many years of service who retired. And so you're going to have a little bit of that stepping back in the number of years of experience when you have that change. And then I asked Mr. Ferris to tell me about the hires in the last 3 years. And so you can see that by and large, very experienced teachers. Looks like as many or more with graduate degrees, several with PhDs. So this kind of information helps me know and should assure you that the quality of teacher at Franklin remains. I'll have this on the slide later, but I'm also pleased with 2 initiatives. One is a group of teachers signed up in the fall, totally volunteer pilot program for peer-to-peer observations. Because teachers were saying, I hear so-and-so has this wonderful lecture, I wish I could see it someday. And so we got this group together to commit to it because they observe, they journal, they reflect on it, they talk about how they can carry a practice from a science classroom into their history classroom. So they're making that commitment. And then we made the commitment that on those days when you want to observe so-and-so's lecture, we'll provide a substitute for that day, or you arrange a test that day and we'll get somebody to proctor it. So we're working together with the faculty to give them that kind of in-house professional development because many of the best teachers that they could see are in-house. I need to go back. I think that's a good quote. So these are recognitions that come from external measures, from external organizations, from the Federal Department of Education, the National Green School, one of 50 schools in the nation that got that last year for the work that's going on this campus for environmental studies and conservation. The Community Roots Award is one I mentioned earlier that went to the Gateway program. And they gave us a check for $3,750 that we're either going to use to pay AP tests for families that need assistance, or I'd like to see us create an internal community outreach grant that students and faculty could submit proposals for what they would like to see happen and use some of that money, seed some of that money that way. Oh, robotics. Becca, are you here? I want you to hear about this.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Travis. I'm a junior here at Ben Franklin, and I'm serving as captain of my robotics team for the 2nd year. We at Ben Franklin have what's called a first robotics competition team. So every year, we get 6 weeks to build, test, and program a robot for a competition, and it's about 120 pounds. One year our robot was 6 feet tall. We build this robot and we compete in a large arena about the size of a basketball court for a regional competition of about 60 teams from across the Southeast United States. Last year, our team became the first team in New Orleans to ever win that competition and earn a ticket to the World Championship in St. Louis. Thank you. Thank you. However, I could talk all day about the robotics portion, but actually the motto of FIRST is more than robots. So along with the robot, we also are creating leaders in the community. We have outreach. This year, our team, we led our first annual First Lego League robotics competition and had 12 teams from elementary schools in the area come and bring their robots and their presentations and compete for a spot in the state Louisiana First Lego League competition. We also have a business management team and a safety team. So our team is not only building the robot, having everyone learn the technical skills from, you'll see people come in scared to hold just a screwdriver and be able to come out knowing exactly all of the power tools and be able to say, I can do this by myself with all of the safety precautions and get you that, whatever that material is, I can get that to you in an hour. And it's incredible to see. But along with that robot and the business and everything, our team is learning, of course, teamwork, communication, networking. We're constantly networking with other companies in the area, collecting or being able to receive sponsors, grants, working with engineers. We have various mentors working with us, professional engineers, teaching us all of the engineering process. Along with FIRST, we have, they're partnered with the Society of Women Engineers, which I'm a part of. The Society of Women Engineers started very recently, they started an initiative called SWE Next, which is a free program for students K through 12, open to females and male students, to promote engineering and going into a career in STEM. I'm proud to say that this year, our Franklin has started a SWE Next team in conjunction with Tulane University's SWE chapter, and we're looking forward to seeing the next steps to promote female engineering at Franklin. Thank you.
One of the challenges is right now the robotics room is about a 10 by 10 closet, and they make it work. I was up on the hall tonight and they were out in the hallway and I said, this place is pretty good when you get kids out of the way. You have enough room to do what you need to do, but they're ready for the challenge, and it's an exciting extracurricular. Again, this is something that the students do above and beyond their commitment to their classes. I just realized I need to pick it up a little bit. Sports, we've had great success with girls volleyball, with girls soccer, boys soccer. This year, the girls basketball team has gotten off to a great start. Last year, the boys were the district champs, went up to Bossier City to play. Oh, I keep skipping over some of Ben Franklin's wisdom. Lots of people here move. I haven't found too many people that are immovable. There's a lot of motion, a lot of movement that goes on at this place. This list, and I'm not going to go over everything on it, but this grew out of conversations that started with the faculty in the fall during in-service. We broke into small groups, and it was groups that didn't necessarily, we prearranged who was in what group, so we had people talking who didn't necessarily always talk to each other, and began to talk about the culture of Franklin. We began to talk about professionalism at Franklin. We began to address some of the faculty level issues, but there were several issues that had already sort of been put on my radar, in part through the interview process and in meetings with the board of directors. And one of those had to do with a real concern for cheating and for the lack of academic integrity. So we have formed a committee. There are 5 students and 3 faculty members on that committee, and we're nearing, and Calder, why don't you make your way up? We're nearing the end of what I think is going to be something very important to present to the board of directors related to academic integrity at Ben Franklin. This is Calder Altman.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Calder Altman, and I appreciate the opportunity to share something that we've really been getting a move on this year. So I'm a junior here at Franklin, and academic dishonesty, which really is cheating, is more common here than we would like. Cheating ranges from simple assignments such as homework all the way to quizzes, tests, and projects. We believe that cheating stems from many sources, mainly a long-standing culture at Franklin that the school is all about grades. To combat academic dishonesty, we've created a committee made up of administrators, teachers, and students. The committee's goal is to address the root causes, the willingness to compromise personal integrity to get that quick A, and the culture here, which is one of that values grades over learning. Another cause is relieving the pressure that is put on students. Pressure is put on students from teachers, parents, and ourselves. So, sorry, this is a little muddled, but on the culture, back to the culture. We aim to create a culture where emphasis is placed on not on a number, but on the number of light bulbs that pop up on kids' faces across our classrooms. We also tend to consider ourselves an academically elite school. But how can we consider ourselves an academically elite school when some of the work isn't really our own work? We must also create a way to lessen the pressure put on students, which I said earlier. So, our challenge on the committee is to collectively find a way to cultivate a school that values learning, to shape a student body that prioritizes acquisition of knowledges over an assured and easy A, and to relieve pressure put on the students. As we work through these issues, we seek to replace cheating with learning. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to take a minute with something on here on internships. I invited Dylan Bourne, but I don't know if Dylan was able to make it. Are you here, Dylan? No. Well, let me just tell you briefly. This grew out of work that Dylan, Simon Masenich, and a couple of other students did last year in submission for Project XQ, which is a very well-funded, Lorraine Pell Jobs was funding this program, to reimagine education. And so they put a proposal together that actually, out of 750, was in the top 50. It did not get funded. There were 10 that did, at $10 million each. But theirs was evidently quite the proposal. And so I began communicating with Dylan over the summer about it. And one of the key components is something that I think we all know is important for high school students, especially Franklin students. And that is to have opportunities to take the classroom knowledge into the research lab, into an internship opportunity. And that's where that knowledge begins to come together. And also that's where a student can really develop that sense of what they want their life to be, or what they don't want it to be. They learn that they thought they wanted to do something and have had a whole change of heart once they spent an internship or research opportunity. So we were really excited last Tuesday when we had 11 companies, 11 organizations, mostly from Propeller, which is a great startup venture hub. These organizations came and the lobby was packed with students to find out what kind of internship they might get, what this was all about. And so we're in the process now of lining those internships up for the rest of this semester. We'll have another internship fair in the spring with the idea of juniors and seniors looking to this as something that they can actually build into their schedule. Much like we have NOCA students who spend half the day with us and half the day at NOCA for a quality internship, for quality research, to actually give them time in the day where they could make this happen. So I'm excited about that and pleased for the work and want to acknowledge Dylan Bourne. Let's keep moving. This was the science fair. Natalie took some pictures of it, and so I put, we had the science fair this year was slightly different. There was actually a gatekeeper. You had to reach a certain level to get into science fair. And I think that everybody felt like the quality of this year's fair was quite good. I want to thank the 35 alumni who actually gave time. They live here in New Orleans, and they came in to help judge the science fair. Max, do you want to hit these highlights? Max Lapushin is our wonderful IT director and has a great IT plan. I want you to understand what he's doing too.
Hello, my name is Maxim Lapushin, and I'm the technology director here. Since I arrived, we have made lots of positive changes, all student-focused. We've enhanced Wi-Fi throughout the campus. We used to have a few dead spots. We have a whole new system that can support the latest speeds. A lot of teachers now assign students streaming videos to watch, and we can definitely support that now. We were also able to provide teachers with new laptops so they can design lessons, they can use the Creative Suite. Additionally, this year we expanded our laptop checkout for students that don't have a computer when they go home. We have about 35 students taking advantage of that program. Additionally, we're currently in the stages of deploying hotspots for students who don't have internet at home using a program called Kajit. I'm very excited about that. Additionally, we were able to get a new security system. You may have noticed some security cameras at our exits that may not have been there before. This will allow us to really maintain a more secure campus. And lastly, we replaced all of our back-end hardware. These are kind of things that people don't notice, but our internet reliability depends on them. And I'm proud to say that this year we have had maybe half an hour of downtime for internet, all due to replacing our router and our firewall. And lastly, we did replace our internet filter to provide a more safe environment for our students to be online. Thank you.
Okay, parents, thank you for doing the survey. I'm going to actually create a full response because there are so many nuances and so many good ideas in it, and I definitely want to take your advice. Oops. Not that quick. These were some of the high points. We sort of looked at each area of operation. As you recall, if you took the survey, and we had a nice response rate, about a 39% response rate, which is quite good. Many of the questions were hitting a high area, and then there were follow-up questions below. So I went through and I kind of, if there was a general consensus on the responses, I just rolled them up together. There are some points that we've already talked about administratively that we can take from this, but I want you to know that that'll be something you each get an opportunity, or if you didn't take the survey, you'll still get an opportunity to see a more robust response and actually what you all determine. But for the most part, you know, I look at those numbers, and this is Franklin. They should all be 100% because we don't like getting B's or there is a C up there. We don't like those. We want A's. So we've got work to do to address some of these issues. But again, I appreciate your doing this. The parent survey will be something else that's done annually with much the same questions so that we can address this. I'm going to move quickly through this. The development office, Christy Reed, Natalie Reinhardt, work closely with the alumni officers. Daniel, I'm glad to see you here tonight, and thank you for coming, and the officers for the work you do. This is a real area for potential and a real area for growth. I don't know how many thousands, if not tens of thousands, of Franklin alumni there are. And I believe we need to accept the challenge to connect alumni from the very first class to last year's class to the school. You connect to each other. I mean, I get that. And you're here and you have friends and you have people that you go through college with. But I think there's an opportunity for us to make a connection still to this place, especially to this place that I think over the next 3 years is going to become pretty exciting with the master plan. But there's some wonderful alumni work going on. Like I said, 30-some came back to judge the alumni fair. There have been a couple of initiatives like career coaching and alumni interns. We just need to pick one or two and stick with it and make those happen, and they will. Annual giving, this is the unrestricted gift. You write a check, you send it to the school and say, use it however you need it. The numbers in the light green are the national averages from independent schools. We have, our alumni are actually not too far off the national average, but I hate to say that because I think they can do better. The amounts, you know, a $100 check in California is not the same as a $100 check in New Orleans. So I don't worry too much about that, but it would be nice to see our participation rates, regardless of the amount, of the size of the gift, become more normed to the national average, that we could talk about that. You can see again the fundraising overall is going in the right direction. Grants are a critical part of what happens around here. I'm going to show you run through a few slides in a minute that'll demonstrate that. But Francois McHugh is our grant writer. She's also the librarian. She's a bird dog. She's always finding these grants that'll help make something happen. And you know, you can see that there's no lack of grants going out. 75 grants so far this year have gone out, and already 36 have come back with a positive response. And she sent me these slides. She wants you to understand what grants, what donations mean and how they're applied. One of the questions in the parent survey about development was, do you know what your donation goes toward? And that was not a good response. We need to do a better job helping you understand when you give, first of all, why to give, and then what happens when you give. All this, by the way, is, because it's been live streamed, it's available, it's archived. So if you want to go back and look at any of it on your own time, you certainly can. And the last and really transformational piece for tonight is that the board of directors approved the hiring of a firm to conduct a facility needs assessment. That list is already pretty long. And develop a master plan. How could this campus be repurposed, revitalized, and what would we need to add to it to have a proper robotics lab, to have additional space for sports and athletics, to do the things that need to happen, frankly, to accommodate 1,000 or 1,100 students. So it's a very exciting time, and you're going to be hearing more about it. The firm that we were able to hire, we interviewed or sought submissions from 5 different firms here in New Orleans. Mark Baum is an architect. He's a member of the board of directors, and he did a masterful job of leading this process. So we had 5 firms, all with amazing credentials and experience, submit their response to our request. We then narrowed that down. Actually, we gave all 5 a one-on-one interview, so that all 5 firms got to actually come talk to the committee in addition to their written submission. Then we narrowed it down to 3 firms, and we followed up interviews with those firms. And from that, we selected Traplin and Peer, who's partnering with VMDO out of Charlottesburg, Virginia. And in fact, Paul is here tonight, and I appreciate her coming. She's going to, we need to put a cot or an office or something in this campus for her, because she's going to be spending multiple meetings here. We have meetings coming up with faculty groups, with parents. That's it. Then that was in last week's newsletter. And if you need to know more about that, please let me know, and I'll tell you the date and time. We're meeting with student groups. all the different cohorts, alumni and alumni officers, so that we get as many stakeholders around the table so that Paula and her team can put that into a master plan for us. This is some of the work that Traplin and Peer and VMDO has already done. Major planning, major construction. Renovation is another big key. That was one of the draws to us, is that they have a commitment to renovating buildings. So we can look at this and say, how do we revive it? How do we bring it back to serve the school in 2020? The school, I think this was opened in 1987, is that right? 89? So, you know, we're getting on to 30 years here, which is a long time to be in this building. We've got to envision 2020, 2030, 2040. The process uses a lot of community meetings, input. They take it all down, and then they generate out of that the plan. Here's the timeline. Yeah, so parents, if you're interested in contributing to the conversation, it'll be January 31st, which I think is a Tuesday at 6:30. Alumni February 1st at 6:30. These will all be in the cafeteria. And then, Paula, you guys are also sending out surveys or questionnaires? Yeah. So if you can't attend a meeting, there will still be an opportunity for you in writing to submit ideas to the firm. And she's going to hire one of our, well, not hire, she's going to select one of our students for an internship. So we'll actually have somebody working on this project for the next several months with the architects in their office. So again, I thank you for being here, for being part of Franklin. And happy birthday, Ben. Okay, it's 8 o'clock, so I'm going to suggest this. First of all, we probably need to raise the lights. Anybody who has a question that they want to ask, stay. If you've got the information you want, or you want to follow up with me at another time or via email, please don't feel like you need to stay on. And again, if you've tuned into this, you can either put a question in the comment line or send me an email.